Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Cancer Coaches Corner. We are, if you have not experienced this before, let me tell you a little bit about us. And we are 3 integrative nutrition health coaches. We are 3 cancer survivors, and we are 3 women who now specialize in working with the cancer community. And so we have taken our cancer journeys and we have turned it into helping others, hopefully shortcutting their journey, right? To help alleviate. And I'd love actually for each of you to share a little bit about how you help your cancer community. So, Anne, tell us a little bit about you and how you support your cancer community.
Thank you, Karen. So I'm Anne. I'm a certified integrative health coach, and I also am trained as a holding space consultant. And so when I support clients who've gone through cancer, I create a powerful transformational container, which includes nutritional and lifestyle guidance with holding space for difficult emotions or trauma that comes up in the body, and turn towards those parts of us with loving, compassionate presence, and really building rapport with the body, because I believe our body is an inner healer. And when we provide it that safety and we resource that inner safety from within, the body heals. And so my clients are usually women in midlife. Many of them have gone through breast cancer, but also struggling with other chronic health issues. And I really empower my clients to see the emotional healing piece is essential to the gut health and the nutrition and all the other stuff we do as well. So
awesome. Amazing. Thank you, Anne. How about you, Haley? How do you tell us a little bit about you and how you serve the cancer community?
Well, thanks, Karen. I'm excited to be here too with both of you. So I am a cancer recovery coach, and I work with women who have finished treatment for cancer and feel unsure of what to do next and have some fear around recurrence. So I help people gain confidence that they will remain healthy so they can live the vibrant, full life that they're meant to live. And, it's really, like Anne said, about transforming your life, making your life better than it was before.
Yeah, 100%. And for those of you who aren't familiar with me yet, I'm a health and transformation coach, breast cancer and BRCA2 thriver, and I specialize in helping breast cancer survivors after active treatment is done to get their energy and life back, but also to reimagine the path forward, right? Because we can't go back. So when we reimagine what that path forward can look like, it can be a huge relief. So that's how I like to serve the breast cancer community. Now, we're here today, all of us, to talk about self-care and the importance of self-care, especially after a cancer diagnosis. And I always say that self-care was maybe optional before your diagnosis, but now it's non-negotiable, right? I think it's something that we can all agree on. So let's find out, first of all, because I think that self-care is often something that's misunderstood. What does self-care look like for each of you? Haley, let's start with you. What does self-care look like for you?
There's so much to it, but to me, it's really connecting with myself and showing myself compassion and love, even when things are hard. I remember after treatment, I was scared. I didn't feel well. I didn't have energy. And it's so easy to get stuck in those feelings of just, my life's not the same anymore. And I think it is so important to have compassion with yourself, and find time for play. Do those things that you just love to do that light you up, and be with those people that light you up. You women light me up. This audience lights me up. So to me, that's self-care. And it's a ripple effect when you when you're with people that you love and when you take good care of yourself, you're taking care of others better as well.
Yeah, I love that, because isn't that one of the biggest things that we hear? And let us know in the comments. If you're on live, let us know where you're coming in from. And let us know what self-care means to you. We'd love to know what self-care means to you. But yeah, it exactly like you said, Haley. How about for you, Anne? What does self-care look like for you?
Well, I love that you said self-care is non-negotiable after cancer. It's absolutely true, because I say self-care is healthcare. And when we're prioritizing self-care, we are doing healthcare and prevention. And I want to piggyback on what Haley said. It's really about staying self-connected and showing compassion for ourselves the same way we do with the people in our lives that we love, right? And so it's really showing up powerfully, not in just those parts of us that shine that we're proud of, but it's the traumatized parts of us. It's the parts of us that get afraid or get overwhelmed, and turning towards those parts with love and compassionate presence. And so, for me, it's a combination of doing things I love, getting out in nature, being with like-minded friends like the two of you, and collaborating and building community. That lights me up, and so having pleasure and fun and play, that's self-care. But also self-care is learning how to hold space for those difficult emotions, because I really feel like when we build a container of safety and love within ourselves, we can heal trauma. We can heal those more difficult places within us. So that's a little, and then sleep, of course, is really important in self-care as well. And I didn't get the best sleep last night. I'll just say it, but I really prioritize my sleep. And I say sleep is not a luxury. It's a medical necessity to sleep well.
And I just thought of one more thing. I'm so sorry. And then I want to ask you, Karen, but doing the things that are important to you. A lot of times we hold off on that because we're like, this kid needs that, or my friend needs me more. So making yourself a priority, and then also saying no to those things that suck your energy. Most of us are people pleasers, or we're people pleasers. We're trying to get over that. But, to say no to things that don't feel good to you, that don't increase or expand your energy. So, but yeah, I just was thinking of that. But Karen, I'd love to hear what self-care means to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And also recovering people pleaser and recovering perfectionist over here. I always say that those things are so ingrained in us. It's very difficult to say that we're through it, but they don't necessarily define our lives the way that they once did, right? So for me, I actually have a definition of self-care that I'd like to share, because for me, self-care is the conscious act that we take to promote our own mental, physical, and emotional health and well-being. So let me just repeat that. Self-care is the conscious act you take to promote your own mental, physical, and emotional health and well-being. So essentially, that looks different for everybody, right? So for me, self-care looks like anything, and kind of piggybacking on what you both already said, anything that makes me feel lighter. I feel like everything I do, I try to focus on how can I lighten the load that I'm carrying, right? How can I release a burden of some kind? And so for me, anything that helps do that is promoting my physical, mental, and emotional health and well-being. So it could be literally sitting, having a cup of tea, right? It could be going for a walk in nature. It could be having an Epsom salt bath. It could be listening to meditation. It could be putting some ABBA on the stereo and dancing like crazy. I mean, and it's preparing a healthy meal for yourself. To me, self-care is every single act that you take throughout your day, where you are promoting your own physical, mental, and emotional health and well-being, which is so many more things than we ever think that we could be doing. But it's a shift in intention with how we approach what we're already doing. so that it doesn't take extra time or extra money or something extra that actually ends up lightening the load that you're carrying. So for me, self-care, like I said, is that non-negotiable. If we and if we talk about how to remain healthy after breast cancer or after any cancer, right? It is one of our biggest fears, the fear of recurrence, the fear of getting sick again. And let me start with you. How important, and I already know your answer, obviously, right? But how important is self-care as part of that picture to remain healthy?
Oh, it's so essential. It's so essential. And when you were speaking, Karen, I love what you were saying. It was beautiful. I was just thinking too, like self-care is just stopping and taking a deep breath
Mm-hmm.
and just notice, how are we breathing? Because most of us breathe from the chest up, and we're actually supposed to be breathing from the belly up. So noticing our breath. And so, sometimes in the middle of my workday, I'll just pause and just close my eyes and, take some deep breaths in, deep breaths out. So just little things during the day, making sure I have a healthy breakfast that sets my energy for the day. I have a blueberry, kale, and avocado, smoothie every morning. It's delicious. And I put, chia seeds and all sorts of stuff in it. Just making sure I get those healthy fats and protein in my diet. And again, sleep, prioritizing sleep and making sure I'm sleeping well, because that's when the body heals, and staying connected. For me, self-care is about connection and community, and doing the things that light me up, like Haley was saying earlier, because when I'm lit up and I'm in joy, then I'm in a healing state. So, and having that greater purpose, doing things like this with both of you, it like plugs you in to a greater purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you, Haley? How important do you think self-care is when it comes to staying healthy after a cancer diagnosis?
Yes, I think it's everything. I think that, before we were diagnosed, all the people I talked to, and you ladies as well, we were just burning the candles at both ends and trying to be everything to everyone.
Mhm.
And when you do that, you're not being there for other people. You're not being there for yourself or other people. So it's so important to like you said, Karen, be intentional about it. And I love that because, I think of going to get a massage. People could say that's self-care, but, you could be rushing to the massage. Yeah, it feels great in that hour, but then you're going back to doing what you're doing and you're all stressed out. And, so what good is that doing you if you're not being intentional with the rest of the day, if you're not being present to your needs and your priorities?
Yeah. I love that being present, because I think to me, and like both of you, self-care is a non-negotiable. It's been a non-negotiable in my life for the past 10 years. How that has looked has shifted for sure. And let us know if you're tuning in. What are your biggest struggles with self-care? Let us support you today. Let us know where it becomes challenging for you. Because, and I think one of the easiest things to do when it comes to self-care, before you even get out of bed in the morning, is to do a little check-in with yourself. And as soon as we say, so before you're reaching for your cell phone, before you start scrolling or checking your email or anything else, check in with yourself from a place of curiosity. Hey, buddy, how you doing today? Right? Checking in with you, because self-care is about turning the attention onto you. And just like you both touched on, let's dispel the myth that it's selfish, because when you actually do self-care the right way, you have more energy to show up for the people that you love. Versus, and I know I felt that, and Haley and Ann, let me know if you felt this too, but there's been times in my life where I've just done everything for everybody and I felt resentful. Not that I'm voicing it, I'm sucking that up too, right? Keeping it inside. But I remember times locking myself in the bathroom and saying, can I just please have 1 minute to pee? Right? And just having that minute, you're like literally giving so much of myself. And I know this is not unusual, right? Can you both relate? I know you both laugh there, like this is something you've actually said in the past.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so when we are hitting that resentment, that anger, that's your barometer that something has to change, right? That's the barometer that you get to start saying, hey, buddy, what do you need? What do you want? How can I make you feel better in this moment right now? What can you do? And like Anne, you were saying, it could be that breath, right? It could be that breath. It could be sitting down and having a conversation with a good friend. I think I did a poll in my Facebook group a little while ago that was shocking to me. And, I'm talking, there's over 1,600 women in the group, so it's a really good number. And over 93% said that they felt alone after the exam was done.
Wow.
Wow. And so it speaks to that connection point that you were talking about, Anne, and the importance of connecting with like-minded people. I mean, I think it's why we all do what we do, right? It's to let people know they're not alone, that they don't have to go through this journey on their own. So, we talked about, and I asked everybody, that's tuning in, or if you're watching the replay, feel free to comment too. We'd love to hear. But what do you do? Haley, we'll start with you. What do you do when people have a hard time making self-care a priority? How do you handle that with your clients?
Well, first, I asked them, if their friend was having an issue with something, a health issue, what would you say to them? Would you say, listen, you really have to take your health seriously. You have to take care of you. Of course you would. You would want that for them. So wouldn't you want that for yourself? And then, to chunk it down and to say, what can I handle? What can I do? Can it be one time a day that I do something that makes me laugh? That I do something that brings me peace, like get out in nature, like Anne said. So what is that one thing you can do? And then, put it in your calendar, because we're often, we're scheduled beings. And so if you have it in your calendar, you're more likely to do it. So that's what I would suggest.
Yeah, I love that. How about you, Anne? What do you say to clients when they're having a hard time making self-care a priority?
Well, I just remind them that self-care is an act of self-love, and everything starts with self-love. When we're loving ourselves and we're prioritizing us, then we have the best version of us to offer the world. So, and a quote I love, my friend Melissa actually shared this with me, is self-care is the most selfless act because it allows us to give the world the best of us versus what's left of us. So I will share that with my clients and remind them self-care is not selfish. It's actually the most selfless thing you can do, because when you're prioritizing you, you show up with your best self. And I think a lot of that is also, this was coming up for me a minute ago, is just the importance of being authentic. And when we're able to be authentic with ourselves and tap in and say, what's really going on here, body? How can I show up? And then we're authentic with the people in our lives. I think it takes a tremendous burden of stress off of us. And because we're actually in alignment with our true self. And when we're walking around in the world as our authentic self, then like our body's in a healing state, right? So that's what I remind my clients.
Yeah.
And what about you, Karen?
Yeah, I love that, Anne, because it actually, the big thing for me and what I've recognized over the past 20 years of working in health and wellness with people is that when we struggle to do something that we know that we ought to be doing, like I think logically most people know, okay, I need to put my oxygen mask on before I put on with somebody else. So for me, often what I've realized is that when we struggle to do what we know we ought to be doing, it's because we don't know who we're doing it for yet. And I invite everybody that's watching and listening to get honest with themselves here and say, do you really know who you are? Because after going through a trauma, any trauma, and trust me, I've been through a lot. I've had the opportunity to ask myself that question, and I'm sure the two of you have too. I see you both nodding. It's like we get to ask ourselves that question and know that it shifts every single time we go through something. So if you're feeling after your cancer journey that you're almost like a square peg trying to fit into a round hole, and you're like, life just doesn't quite fit the same way anymore, that's often because we need to get to know who we are at this new state, in this new point in time. That's why it's always the first step of what I do when I'm coaching anybody, is getting to know who we are today. And that might shift a month from now, it might shift 2 years from now. It doesn't matter. It's going to shift. But if we don't know who we're doing self-care for, we are going to resort to the old habit of taking care of everybody else because it's easier. It's known. It's just what we've always done. And so for me, that's the first thing that I do with anybody that is struggling to make self-care a priority, or any other healthy habit. To be honest, it's the first step. Know who you're doing it for. Right?
I'd love to hear how you go about that. I mean, is it having them say their needs and priorities, or what does that look like?
Well, I mean, it starts, and I have a whole formula, and it's the formula that I teach in my group coaching program, but it starts with your core values, right? And so actually within 90 minutes is how quickly we can get to know who we are. And if we think about how many hours, how many days, how many months, how many years, if you said, I don't even know who I am anymore. You're looking in the mirror, not recognizing the woman looking back at you. And yet with just simple exercise with the right guidance, and that's really important. It's not something that somebody can give you on a piece of paper and say, go do. It's typically something that you need to be coached through to look at it in a way that feels easy versus stressful. Right? Because sometimes if we're just looking at it becomes one more thing. Oh, I've got to do this, And so, but yeah, for me, it starts with determining your 10 core values. What are the 10 core values that create who you are?
I love that.
And then, right, then you get to know, who am I doing self-care for? Who am I eating for? Is that in alignment with my core values? And Haley, you had touched on setting boundaries and saying no. Again, another thing that we struggle when we don't know who we're setting the boundary for. When you know who you are and what you want, it's so much easier to say no, because we're not looking at what anybody else thinks we should be doing. We're looking at ourselves.
Yeah, the healthy boundaries. I'm so glad that you both brought that up, because that's so important. Saying no to the wrong things gives us more space to say yes to the right ones. Yeah. And it's kind of what I was saying about being in our authentic self. It's like when we're in alignment, we know our core values, then we can show up with more space in our lives to say yes to the right things.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. And have that intuition of, is this right for me? Because I know a lot of people struggle with that. Is this decision right? Well, to me, does it expand your energy? Or does it make you constrict? Is it making you feel fearful? Because that might not be the right decision for you. So I think that's so important. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. And I think that, that's a good barometer, right? It's a good way of, if you find that you're procrastinating on something, right? Often it's because we're looking at, well, what are they going to think? What are they going to, what should I do? What what are other people's opinions of me going to be if I make this decision, versus the self-care route, just like you said, Haley, is this going to give me more energy, fill me up, make me feel lighter, or is this going to weigh on me and make me feel heavier and more restricted? So I love that as just a really simple tool. Again, the question is, how is this going to make me feel? Which is really the base of self-care. And not feeling bad about it, right? Not feeling guilty or selfish or any of those things. So we hope that this has been helpful today in helping you understand the importance of self-care after cancer. Ladies, do you have any last thoughts that you'd like to leave our audience with today? I will say before we finish up, you can find, wherever you're watching this video, all of our contact information. Each of us have free gifts to share with you. Feel free to click on those links and claim your free gifts. We would love to hear from you, so feel free to send us a message from any of our social media platforms. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the things that we discussed here today, how it landed with you, perhaps any light bulb moments that you had. We would love to know. But any last thoughts, Anne? Any last thoughts that you'd like to leave our audience with today?
Well, what came to me is that self-care doesn't have to be this radical change overnight. It can just be a small, simple step, and just figuring out what are the top things I can do and make it practical and realistic. And then just focus on that, and just doing like maybe 2 new self-care practices a day can actually be a huge needle turner to really start increasing your health and feel amazing. And, it could be just stopping and taking some deep breaths throughout the day, like something that simple. So I just want our audience to know it doesn't have to be some radical change. It can be small incremental steps that you prioritize.
Yeah, I love that. How about you, Haley?
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And, I was just thinking of something that happened in the car yesterday with my husband and we were driving to pickleball. We play in this open pickleball on Sundays. And I was thinking about all the people that are getting hurt playing pickleball. And I just had this like gratitude for my body. And I said in the car, I'm like, oh, thank God my knees, are okay. And then I'm talking to them. I'm looking down at my knees. Oh, thank you so much for allowing me to play pickleball and not hurting. And, so often it's just about being grateful for your body. I mean, sometimes, it could sound silly, but even in the shower, as you're scrubbing yourself, just to be grateful for each body part, that does so much for you throughout the day.
Yeah. I love that.
You laughed at me, by the way, but I didn't care.
But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? We do these things for us, not because of how somebody else is going to react. And I think that, for me, I love to find silly, goofy, humorous things anyway. That is, I'm a bit silly and I'm a bit goofy. And so that's in alignment with who I am. If it's upsetting to somebody else, okay, that's, I'm sorry, guys, but it's not my problem. You can't be everybody's cup of tea. It's just not possible in this world. So I think for me is, my final note on self-care, I think I'm going to reiterate what I said at the very beginning, that self-care may have been optional prior to a diagnosis. I think that for many people, based on the hundreds of women that I've spoken with, going through cancer has often been the first time in your life that you have guilt-free focused on yourself and your needs. And I want you to know that self-care after treatment is over is still a non-negotiable, and that you get to do it without feeling selfish or guilty, because it truly is the path forward to staying healthy after your diagnosis, as you've heard us all share snippets about today. So I think that's my my final words on self-care, and trust me, we could all jam on self-care for a really, really long time. Right? It's something that all three of us are very aligned on and very passionate about because it is often the game changer in your life. It's that shift to knowing that you're worth it, knowing that you deserve it,
Yeah.
and knowing that you matter enough to take care of yourself.
Amen. That is so true.
Yeah. Yeah. So with that, we will say bye for now. We will see you again in a couple of weeks. We're going to be doing these on a regular basis. If you have any topics you'd like us to cover, feel free to reach out to any of us and let us know. We'd love to make this exactly what you need it to be. And don't forget to connect with us. All of our links are around this video. Grab your free gifts. And we look forward to hearing your thoughts and hearing from you and seeing how this landed with you today. So, and Haley, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here. And I love what the three of us are creating together. So,
me too.
Absolutely. It's been a joy. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody. We'll see you next time.